I always say I never want to die wondering what if.
Yes.
Never, 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 never.
Yeah. I did promise you this wouldn't be the highlight reel, but I didn't think I'd be delivering on that promise so soon. A few weeks after my chat with Larissa, founder of Homb, they announced they'd be closing their doors on the 30th of November. Business is tough at the best of times, let alone when you're creating something outside of the box and truly disruptive. Since the announcement, Homb has had an outpouring of support, with many mothers who've stayed there saying how much of a profound impact their stay had on their postpartum experience. I'd like to commend Larissa for starting the conversation on bringing postpartum care into the mainstream. This is not the end of that conversation. I hope you enjoy this episode, and please listen to the end to hear my post-recording chat with Larissa where she talks about the closure. Are you ready to challenge yourself and think bigger? I'm your host, Marianne Marchese, and together we'll hear the unfiltered, unscripted stories of those who've taken big risks and transformed their bold ideas into reality. Season 1 is brought to you by multi-award-winning law firm Legalite, where bold ideas thrive. Well, hello there and welcome to Bold Ideas. Today we're joined by Larissa Leone, the pioneering founder of Homb, Australia's first postpartum hotel. With a bold vision to reimagine how we care for mothers and families after birth, Larissa hasn't just started a business, she's started a movement. Welcome, Larissa.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure, and you are actually my very first guest. So thank you.
Wow. Oh, what an honour.
The honour is absolutely mine. I love what you are doing.
Thank you.
And when I'm chatting to founders, I love to know about their why. So please tell me about what sparked the idea for Homb.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I suffered from postnatal depression and anxiety after I had my daughter, Valentina. And in those very early days, I was just really lost and confused. It wasn't for the lack of not having family around me or, I'm Italian by heritage. So, I had a beautiful
big family.
I was surrounded by beautiful family. My husband was amazing, is amazing. And so, it wasn't for lack of people around me. But it was just I had a lot of expectations on myself and a lot of judgment. So, those – and I was a very A-type personality.
Yep,
so
I can relate to that.
Yeah, successful businesswoman, prior to this business and, everything had its place and its box, and then this baby came along and I thought I'd read all the books that I could.
Yep.
And
no book can
I was going to have
you.
this down pat.
Yeah. Yes.
And it did not go that way. And so I became incredibly anxious and, you have all the normal sort of the baby blues that come, which we know is very normal. But mine continued to sort of carry on, and there was a lot of self-talk that was probably much more silent than, open communication with the people around me. So I internalized a lot and that just sort of grew and grew. So, I would search for somewhere to go. I didn't know at the time I didn't know really about postnatal depression and anxiety. I didn't know about any perinatal mood disorders. I didn't know about mother-baby units. It just wasn't something I wasn't a part of, that journey with pregnancy and then birth. And
when did you have your first baby? What year was it?
Valentina was born in 2013, so February 2013.
Yeah. So definitely at a time where I feel like we didn't speak much about the postpartum experience or support for women.
Social media wasn't anywhere near what it is now. And, there's obviously two schools of thought around that as well. Sometimes social media is incredible and other times it can be incredibly demoralising as well and disempowering. But, so I would always search for somewhere that I could go. Valentina would not sleep past 45 minutes in a sleep cycle, so day or night. So, it was
That's brutal.
Yeah, it was a really brutal journey. So I was kind of looking for this place. I didn't know what I was sort of looking for, but I knew I didn't need to go back to, well, I say I didn't need to go back to hospital. I knew that I wasn't going to go back to hospital, and there was just nothing around. There were very siloed things. So there was sleep school, there was, other things that you could do. And, you'd go and see the maternal child health nurse and, in some ways that was great, and in other ways it was not so great. And there was just nothing.
Yeah.
There was nothing there that I felt like, and I just kept saying to myself and my husband, why is there not somewhere that I can go, that I can stay and just be helped and supported? Like, I don't know what I'm doing here. This isn't coming. I remember sitting in the bathroom one night just thinking, where is my mother's instinct? Why don't I have this? How do I know when it comes? Oh, I'm failing at this because I don't have this. I don't know what I'm doing. I should know what I'm doing. And so, that spirals, particularly when it's silent thoughts.
Absolutely.
And silent conversations,
And you're not sharing it, and you feel that, that mum guilt and that shame
Absolutely.
About what you're feeling. And I feel like also you mentioned, maternal health nurse and sleep schools, and they are fantastic, but also that they are very different experiences. Like
Very
maternal
different.
health is it's a process. You're going into a process after having your baby. And sleep schools are really quite clinical as well.
They
and
are.
they work. They're
Yeah.
great,
Yeah.
but they are clinical. It's not it's not a very nurturing, soft environment.
No. And look, while there are some places that probably try and make that the experience, inevitably you're there to get your child to sleep. So that's the number one objective. And, sleep is such a controversial topic. And there's many schools of thought, around it. But,
and it might not align with the parents, what
absolutely.
they want for sleep
But also
either.
when
It's
you're,
one way.
when you're in that, everyone's situation is so unique. And I think that's what we lose sight of, and why there is so much judgment around these different periods of postpartum, because everyone seems to hold on to really strong belief systems, and that's okay. But I think we struggle to have a bit of compassion and empathy for people who are at their wits' end. If your child hasn't slept past a 45-minute sleep cycle for 6 months, you need to do something.
Absolutely.
And it might be drastic.
Yeah.
And so, it sort of got to that point. And then I got to very, very dark places.
Sorry to hear that.
And I did then at that point say to my husband, I don't think I should be having these thoughts. And so he spoke to a very close friend of his who they had just recently had 2 children, and she knew a mothercraft nurse. So, we contracted Kate in, and she came in, and she had to unravel quite a significant amount between the both of us, and we were both exhausted.
How old was Valentina by
6
this
months.
stage? 6 months old, yeah. So that's a good 6 months that you've been feeling this way really silently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my nervous system was shot. I wasn't eating.
You weren't sleeping.
Not sleeping. So, there's a lot of physical, mental, emotional things that compound over a period of time.
So sleep as well. Like, I remember my first was a very good sleeper, but my second was not. And I was like, what fresh form of torture is this?
Yep.
The sleep deprivation.
Yes.
It is brutal.
Yeah,
So,
it's horrible.
Yeah.
It's absolutely
and
horrible.
then you're obviously very hormonal postpartum. And so I love that you brought a mothercraft nurse in. And I feel like that really aligns with what you're doing at home, which is to mother the mother.
Exactly.
So did this experience spark the idea for Homb?
Yeah, it's kind of strange. In the depths of my experience and depression and anxiety, essentially this idea was born.
And I love that you have done this 12 years on from your
Yeah.
experience. You're not in the thick of it anymore.
No.
Why was that? Why was it still important to you to deliver something that is so unique in the postpartum space when you're out of that world now?
Because honestly, it's always around us, regardless of whether you are a mother or not. You will know someone who is a mother. You will know someone who is experiencing the beauties of postpartum or the tortures of postpartum, and everything in between that. So, you kind of, once you're a mother, you're always a mother.
Yeah.
And there's different stages and phases of that. So I held on to my experience from a creative perspective to know that there was nothing in the market that was available for women like this. And it blew my mind. And over the years, I would occasionally Google, postpartum care.
Has anyone done this yet?
Surely someone's done this. Like,
Yeah.
there's such a business opportunity here. How is no one doing it? And there was just never anything. It was still always the sleep schools or, doulas started to become sort of a thing. But even that, I didn't really understand what doulas were. So it kind of didn't really make sense to me. And so, it was just always fascinating to me that no one had done it. And at the time I, had a really successful business. So it was not, I would talk to the idea with girlfriends and, close colleagues that I would have that were mothers. And I'd say, I don't know how anyone hasn't done this. And they would always be like, oh my God, Riss, like, that is just why is there nothing? Like, everyone would be just as astounded.
This is a great idea. Yeah.
And so I was like,
that's when you know when you're onto something, when it gets received like that, and when you can't stop thinking about it years on, you have to do it.
Yeah.
So what was your previous business?
Operational consulting.
Okay.
So sort of that virtual business manager, virtual CEO.
So you've really moved into a totally different world.
Yeah, definitely. My background is all operational.
Yeah.
So, in big, large companies and also small businesses. So the business side of it for me was
easy.
it wasn't a stretch for me. I felt really comfortable, really confident in creating a business. But what was completely out of my depth was the healthcare space, and that is absolutely a whole other world.
Yeah.
And so, going into it, I started doing my due diligence basically in the height of COVID. I had decided to sell my business at the beginning of 2020, just before we went into lockdown.
Oh, wow.
And so I sold that business, and then I thought, okay, what am I going to do? And I thought, okay, I'll starting to just test the waters with this idea and see.
And how did you do that? Did you speak to people, do some market research? What was the process there?
I hired a company out of Sydney, a market research company out of Sydney, and basically started some quantitative surveying essentially, and they were brilliant. So we ended up surveying nearly 1,800 women all over Australia.
Yeah. Because it's hard to obviously pilot an idea that needs a physical space without spending $1 million. So.
Yeah, and this was the point that it was really going to be about, am I doing this or am I not doing this? And even just doing the bare bones of, financials and, everything else, I knew that it was a huge investment financially. And so I really needed to know whether the market wanted it, and I needed to test the market with that. And doing it this way, I kind of felt like was going to be a very distinctive yes or no. And so obviously it was an overwhelming yes, but there were always markers within that surveying that people were willing to pay a certain amount for this care. And, you know, because it was so conceptual, it was hard to quantify what that care looked like. I knew what I wanted it to look like and feel like, more importantly. But at that stage, it was like, okay, people were like, yeah, I'd probably pay between $500 and $700 a night. And I was like, okay. But then once you actually start, you know, really investigating, okay, well, I want midwives in there. I want, you know, NICU nurses in there. I want doulas in there. I want all of these professional people. Once you start drilling down, you're like,
this isn't going to be $500.
This is not going to be $500. And so you just start to massage what that looks like. And then the research took me into lots of different cultures. You know, in Asia, confinement hotels, they're predicting it to be a $380 billion industry by 2030.
So you kind of use that as your benchmark because there's nothing else that you could benchmark.
Well, there was
against,
nothing else. There's nothing else in Australia like Homb. There are versions of it that are set up in hotels, but there is nothing that is all-encompassing like the way that we do it at home. So I was absolutely creating something from scratch. And we continue to evolve to this day, and it's something that I always say to the team, you know, we can't kind of be stagnant. We're pioneering something that Western civilization don't really understand.
Yeah.
And that is still to date our biggest challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, and I really resonate with what you were talking about earlier about, you know, the difference in cultures and the confinement period. When I had my first baby, it was COVID lockdown.
Yeah. Right.
So I was confined, not out of choice, but I actually really loved it. Looking back, I was like, this was really nice. It was obviously much longer than 40 days, which I think is most cultures. But just being in our own little bubble, and we would have food delivered, and I just felt really, you know, safe in a safe space, especially with what was happening at that time.
Yeah.
And I think to be able to deliver something like this now for parents out of choice is, you know, if I could love it during lockdown, I think anyone could really benefit from an experience like this. Yeah. So what was, because it was obviously so unique and it's the first of its kind in Australia, what challenges did you face in the early stages to of the many challenges to get this off the ground once you decided you were going to go ahead with it?
Look, a lot. People didn't understand it. So every stakeholder that I would engage with, it took a long time for them to understand. And particularly with, you know, industries that can be really male dominating, that was then even somewhat harder to articulate what it was and what I wanted the feeling to be. And, you know, I was blessed at the time to have an incredible studio that I worked with for branding and marketing, and, you know, and developed that brand. And our communications manager today that's with us is from that studio. So,
that's great.
You know, there
so
was
the understanding of the
exactly
brand from day
there
one.
was the ability, but also, you know, working with them. You know, the managing director was a father, and so, you know, there were elements of it that he completely understood, and he had a sister. And so, you know, to go back to what you were saying before about being a mother touches every part of society, and yet it's the most undervalued part of our healthcare system, which is just extraordinary.
Yeah, or even just of our system. Like
absolutely.
Unpaid labour, and it's so hard being a mum.
We only see it as a really small acute period of time that is generally, you know, a lot of emphasis is on the birth, and with some women, rightly so. And then, you know, there's the duration of the pregnancy, which for a lot of women isn't a really great experience. And for others, it's absolutely beautiful. Certainly for me, both of my pregnancies were amazing, but there's lots of things that come with that.
Yeah.
So, and then you've got the biggest part of the experience that goes for the longest time in most cases, and that's the postpartum period.
Yeah.
And it's actually the period where the system just drops you.
Yeah.
And absolutely leaves you.
Mm-hmm.
So, there was an evident gap in afterbirth. For the remainder of that period, there was nothing there holistically to support women and families through that time.
Yeah. So I imagine then, taking up a space, and I went to visit it a couple of weeks ago, and it's really unassuming from the front.
Yeah. Very.
I drove past a couple of times. I'm like, do I have the right address?
Yeah.
Which is great. And I assume that that's what you're going for.
Yeah.
But yeah, going through that space, it's so stunning. It feels like home. It is a home.
Yeah.
And so how did you go in things like getting permits to set up, a postpartum hotel in a home? And I love the name, by the way, I have to say, just to touch on it. Home is spelled with a B on the end, which is that a play on womb?
Womb, yeah.
I love that. Yeah, brilliant.
There were 6 names presented to me, and home was the one that absolutely captured me
Nailed
first.
it.
And interestingly, I said to the company that were doing the market research, I said, I've got these 6 names. Can we add it in as a question
great.
and see what rates the most? And home was the one that rated the least.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And for lots of reasons. And I completely understood, no one knows how to pronounce it properly. People are saying, a lot of different versions. Okay. And when I told them that I went with it, they were like, we've never had anyone defy our market research. I was like, but yeah, there was a lot of barriers in terms of trying to explain to systems. So, insurance, for an example, they were like,
what do you want insurance for?
What am I insuring? Yeah. Am I insuring the newborn baby? Am I insuring the mother? Am I insuring the food that you're serving? How are you serving the food? What does that look like? So there were a lot. I mean, I think my insurance broker, we went through like 38 insurers.
I was just going to ask you, how many did you go through to finally get someone to insure?
It was wild. Wow. And I actually got to a point where I thought, if I can't get insurance, no, I can't do this, regardless of how much market research wants it.
Yeah.
But we got there in the end with one of the biggest insurers in the world. They were amazing and said, no, we're gonna take a punt on you. And that's what I had to keep doing in those first instances. So council were also like, sorry, what? So I don't know what category, right? Because everyone wants to put you in a category. Yes. Everyone wants to put you in a box.
You're creating a new category.
Yeah. So it took council a little while, but inevitably once you explain, your mission and what you're actually trying to do, there's very few people that deny you wanting to be of service to the community at large. So I was, blessed. It was not easy, but I was blessed through the journey that people ended up being incredibly on board and supportive. Council have to date. I mean, there was 3 years. 3 years that I started doing the due diligence for home to the time that we opened the doors.
Wow.
So it was not something that sort of happened overnight. Yeah. You're creating whole new operational plans, policies. I mean, we're still evolving in our policies and procedures to date. And I think you need to be that open in business, particularly when you're creating something so new totally and unique.
New. Yeah, absolutely. Well, it is an amazing space. I'm done having kids, but I was like, can I have another baby just so I can stay here?
Yes, I've had 60-year-old women say, I would just try and defy the odds just to come and have,
Oh, that's brilliant. And so how do you educate people about because it is a new category. How do you educate people about what a postpartum hotel is?
Yeah, look, it's really difficult because it's a bigger conversation than the space itself. And yes, the space is beautiful and it's, you know, very centered around a woman's nervous system and a family's nervous system, and all of the beautiful things that encompass it. But we've got to actually get women there.
Yeah.
And so the challenge for us that we face is being able to educate women, and I don't like to use that word educate, but it's about trying to have women understand the value of that period of time
and that they matter
with themselves.
And you say on your website, mother the mother, and I think that just absolutely nails it.
Absolutely. Women need to be held through that process.
Hold them
They are spending all of their time holding their newborn baby and doing everything that they possibly can for their newborn baby. And who's holding them?
Yeah.
And, you know, we have this trophy culture that if you are, you know, up and at 'em and out and about, that you're amazing. And some people don't have a choice. Like, I completely understand that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Some people have, you know, financial commitments that, you know, they need to get back out there. In America, they don't even have maternity leave. They have to take annual leave, you know.
That's
so
crazy.
We have gone wrong in the West. We absolutely have. And I have learnt so much from other cultures, particularly, you know, beautiful Asian women in the community around me that, you know, we will have a giggle. We will have a giggle and they will say, you guys just have no idea.
Yeah, it is so different. I feel like the culture here, and it's not malicious, but, you know, when people come to meet the baby, it's almost like the mum is totally ignored. And it's really the mum. I mean, both are struggling. The baby's just entered the world. So I get that babies are adjusting, but mums are like,
all they want to feel is the love.
And
that's all they need.
Yeah.
They need the love. They need the cuddles. They need the breastfeeding or whatever form of feeding.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a shift in mentality. So that is absolutely our biggest challenge at the moment. And, you know, we have literally exhausted almost every form of marketing. But unless a woman will place value on herself, no amount of marketing can change that.
Yeah. So, and that's why I say you are creating a bit of a movement here, because it's not just about a physical space. It is about what comes with your offering. So talk me through when a mother arrives at home, what can she expect? And do you have a minimum night stay?
Yes. So there is a 4-night minimum stay, and that was something that absolutely came out in the market research. You know, we asked about that minimum night stay, and certainly for you to get any sort of value in terms of physical, emotional and mental well-being, anything less than 4 nights, you're not
scratching the surface.
Yeah, you're just scratching the surface. And we're not saying that 4 nights is a flick the switch by any means.
Of course.
But it is, you know, it is a period of time that you can kind of sink into. So typically when you arrive, you know, you're greeted in the space by incredible staff. So our staff comprise of lots of different professions. But essentially what we've tried to do is make the space holistic. So there'll be midwives, there'll be nurses, there'll be doulas, there will be naturopaths, there will be clinical nutritionists, there will be birth debriefers, breastfeeding consultants, and then also we can bring consultants in depending on what your circumstance is. So each stay is very unique, and each stay there is a really big process before you come in. So we're absolutely understanding everything about your journey, how you've gotten here, not just where are you at that point in time.
I love that. I love that so much, because I think we're not even asked after we've had the baby about, you know, things like birth experience, how's feeding going, to literally just even have to like fill out a form where we're asked about ourselves is really powerful.
Yeah.
So I love that process starts before they even arrive.
Yeah, absolutely. We need, in order to curate that care for you, we absolutely need to know not just about your pregnancy and your birth, but, you know, did you experience mental health issues before you were pregnant? How have you managed that? What does that look like? You know, are there significant things that we need to know? You know, there's a lot of circumstances in women's life that pregnancy and birth can be absolute triggers for. And, you know, I understand sometimes hospitals don't have the time to be able to investigate at the level that we do, but it all forms part of the care that we can provide. So, yeah, we meet a guest where they're at when they come in. Generally, it will be some beautiful food straight up as soon as you come in, a nice warm drink if that's what you like. We unpack for you. So, you know, there's no suitcases laying around in the room. We unpack for you and your baby and your husband or partner if they're staying. And then generally the first thing we do is, if you want it, a bath straight away. So we're just really cocooning you and starting to help that nervous system. And then more than likely you're tucked into bed or you're sat on the couch, or, you know, there's a foot bath and, you know, we will run you through what will happen in your stay. There's a lot of time to just be as well. I think that's really important. A really big part of this is that we're trying to give mothers back time. So there's no rush. There's no need to be anywhere. It's just that space for you to be still with your baby, to bond, and to be able to really reconnect with yourself. You know, the connection with your baby is absolutely there and important.
Yeah.
But what we have found is that once a mother can kind of breathe and just exhale a little bit, there's so much flow that starts to come in. And they're fed, you know, they're fed incredibly nutritionally dense, beautiful, beautiful food, and that makes such a difference.
Yeah, huge difference. I can speak from my own experience with postpartum. The second time, I really had a focus on warming foods and things that were like really nourishing for me, and I felt like I recovered so much better and quicker, and I felt so much better than the first time around when I knew nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a real the beauty of confinement. And that Asian culture is that their theories and methodologies is that keeping the warmth in the body, because the body will heal much better internally with that warmth, you know, and that rest and that healing. And so we absolutely do the opposite thing here by you know, doing all the things. And that gets harder as you know, if your second time around you've got a toddler, if your third time around you might have a toddler and, you know, a young child just starting school. You know, so those things can be really, really challenging. But if it's something that you invest in, with every family that we have cared for, it has by far completely changed and altered the trajectory of their postpartum.
And I think that's the key thing. You're not claiming to, you know, change their life in 4 nights, but it is a reset, and you're removing the mental load from the minute they arrive, and that is huge for postpartum mums. And then it's resetting the nervous system, and it is in a way empowering them to take what they've experienced and go apply it in their life.
Absolutely.
So it does change the course.
Absolutely. And unfortunately we know that 1 in 3 women suffer birth trauma. And so, you know, where do you go with that? Where you go home and you carry that and then you continue on this path, you know, and the really big reason that I started this was because I didn't want any other woman to experience what I went through. And I feel like I had good births, you know. So I didn't have that layering, you know, but there's so many women who experience so many different things. You know, you think about people who are going through IVF. That is a journey within itself.
Yeah.
And you're not even going through the, you know, getting to those parts of pregnancy and then birth. And then there's all the feelings of tiredness and, you know, I shouldn't be feeling like this because I've wanted this. And, you know, so there's so many parts of a woman's journey in the postpartum that are absolutely neglected by our system.
And I think also touching on IVF, you know, once you've been through that journey, and I did go through IVF with my first, and then to be pregnant and then have the baby, IVF seems like a lifetime ago and you haven't even processed it.
Yes.
So it's seeing, you know, the journey to becoming a mother as a whole journey. It's not just the literal birth or the literal arrival of the baby.
Yes.
It's often, you know, a story behind that as well. So creating space for that as you are,
absolutely,
I think is really powerful.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's hard for people to digest the cost and, you know, what comes with it. And until you experience it, until you experience home, it's actually really difficult. And even, you know, in our guest testimonials, you know, one guest says it's really hard to put into words what this place means because it means so many different things for so many different people. But ultimately, you know, it's an investment in yourself and we have to start investing in ourselves because the hospital system is moving further and further away.
Absolutely.
And so that is leaving us to somewhat have to fend for ourselves.
Yeah, and there is that gap.
And the mental health is absolutely the number one crisis in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so, you know, for us as a business, we are at a point where we need backers. You know, we need big business to get on board and absolutely drum home the value of this care because it will absolutely change the trajectory of perinatal mood disorders and the mental health of women in postpartum. Absolutely.
It will.
Yeah.
And I think also the more that we can talk about this and be aware of it, it's seeing the value in investing something like this over something else that we may just be part of society. And I can't think of any specific examples, but it's just assume that you would spend money on X instead of something like
We'll
home.
take a wedding, for example.
Yeah,
a wedding is a great example.
Great example.
We have many people don't even bat an eyelid at the money that they will spend
and it's like a lot.
Yeah.
You know.
Look, we're getting a lot of women now that are actually making the choice to not go into private.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about
area
it. Go through the public system and then put the money towards something like a stay
and
at
it doesn't have to be home.
Yeah.
It can be, you know, a doula.
Yeah.
It can be a meal service. It can be, but, you know, if you do have the opportunity to access private health and not spend that money there, then home is absolutely an option for you.
It's that mindful spending of that
and,
period.
you know, have a wishing well at your baby shower instead of getting 40,000 stuffed toys and blankets and, you know, you will get those things along the way, absolutely. But, you know, if you do those things like a wishing well or, you know, you can absolutely create enough money there.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that idea.
Yeah.
And for people that can't afford to stay, you've also established the Home Trust to provide financially supported stays for families.
Yes.
Tell me a bit about why that was important to you and the impact it's had so far.
Yeah. So obviously, you know, going through the financial aspects, it became very evident that this was only going to be accessible for a certain sector of the population. And I knew firsthand that perinatal mood disorders don't just go after people who have money. It doesn't discriminate, and every woman is susceptible to any mental health illness after birth. So it was really important that I tried to sort of open that sort of parameter. And the Home Trust came about because I wanted to be able to have more people be able to access it. Obviously there are, it's means tested, so there are things around who can access that funding to be able to stay. But through the charity, I think we have cared for possibly 30 to 40 families now.
That is incredible.
And it has been, look, we don't, when they come into the space, no one actually knows who's paid for the stay and who hasn't. We are there to support women and all their families, regardless of, their background or whether they can pay for it or not. But it was really important to me to have it be able to be accessed by a variety of women. The reality is that there is a middle market there that doesn't fall into who can afford it, and that doesn't fall into the means testing areas. So, there still is a really huge gap there, and we continue to work every day to talk to private health insurance, to talk to Medicare. A lot of what I do day to day is advocating for it to be recognised on a bigger scale. But, it's a challenge. It really is
I
a
think
challenge.
when you're the first that's doing this, it will be a challenge, but I really have faith that you will get there, because what you're doing is incredible and it is much needed. Yeah, I say that as a mother.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure. So I'd love to wrap up by hearing, what's your vision for Home? And you've touched a little bit on it, but if you could see where it's at in 5 years' time, where do you want it to be?
Oh, the joy. I would absolutely love to see Home in every capital city, but then also us being able to reach regional centres as well. I think, there's a lot of mums in regional areas that just don't get access to even the basics of what's being offered. And it would be incredible to have it form part of our healthcare system in a way that is, you birth your child, be it in hospital or in your own home, whatever that looks like for you, and then a week stay is just part of what Australia does now to care for their women.
Make it the norm.
Yeah, it is a normal part that you have your baby and then you are cared for and you are provided with that space to be able to bond with your baby, to be able to be nurtured and cared for and healed. It's not going to be a magic pill for everybody, but I know in my heart that it will absolutely change the trajectory of where we're at currently as a system. Absolutely.
Postpartum care. Yeah, amazing. And what's one piece of advice you have for someone who has a bold idea?
Do your due diligence, test your idea on the market, and invest in that. It's a really fundamental part of business creation. Some are going to be easier than others. I had to invest a significant amount of money in my due diligence. It wasn't a tech company that I could just, spend, a couple of tens of thousands on. I had to invest close to $100,000, $200,000 in my due diligence because it's a physical space. So,
well, that's a testament to how much you believe in it.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you absolutely have a bold idea and you believe in it, I always say I never want to die wondering what if.
Yes.
Never.
Yeah.
So, test your idea on the market, and if it's going to work, then give it a good crack.
Go for it. Yeah. Love that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And where can people find you online and on socials?
Yeah. So our website is homb.com.au. Our Instagram handle is home_postpartum. We're also on Facebook. We also are on TikTok. Yeah.
Great.
So
Get the word out there. I love
Absolutely.
it. Thank you so much, Larissa.
You're
It's been
welcome.
such a joy to chat to you.
thank you for having me.
Pleasure.
Welcome back, Larissa. First of all, how are you feeling?
Look, it's a roller coaster of emotions. Obviously everybody knows now I've had to make the very difficult decision to close the doors of home. It has not come as an easy decision, that's for sure. And I've probably spent, a few more weeks than I should have, not announcing it. But look, at the end of the day, it just wasn't being accepted, and not accepted. Everyone, all women and mothers want this service. It's not that it's not accepted from that aspect.
From the people that need it.
Correct. It is just not accepted by the healthcare system. And we always knew that our biggest challenge and barrier was going to be cost. But I really was driven and really was hopeful that we were going to be able to work through that just off the back of showing the incredible work that not only me and my team do, but also these mothers who are coming in, allowing themselves to be vulnerable, working through what they need to, or just getting the rest and respite and recovery and support and guidance that they need, But it's one thing to be a part of the healthcare system, either as a patient or as, someone somewhat on the outskirts. But yeah, I've certainly seen some intricacies of how it works.
It's another thing to break into that healthcare system when you are doing something that's never been done before, even though there's clearly such a need for it. And mothers and families have validated that need, and you did identify a clear gap in the market, but then breaking into, probably the oldest industry there is, is really, really tough. And just my absolute hats off to you for giving it a go, because we spoke in our first episode about you don't want to die trying. And
Never.
And I love that you have done this and given it a go. And I'm so sorry that, the cost was a prohibition and the healthcare system was not ready for it. And I know many other people are too. You've had an outpouring of support on social media. I've been reading the comments, and some mothers have commented on it that have stayed with you and said how much of a significant impact it had on their postpartum experience and trajectory. Has that's been the experience that you've felt since announcing the news?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a bittersweet moment in Homb's journey. It's a bit of, and for our guests that stayed, yes, absolutely, they are, they completely understand it. They know exactly what's involved. And, there's a big part of this that, we are at a point where we understood what mothers needed before they knew what they needed themselves. And, that's not us sitting here telling them what they need or telling them what they need to do. It is a genuine, understanding of this is absolutely what women need. So, yes, the outpouring has been incredible, and there's been lots of people that have said, what can we do to keep you open, and what do you need? And, it's also hard to have that commentary as well, because it's, it's like, Well, I've been on here a couple of times telling you what we need. But ultimately, you know, I said this to someone the other day. The reality is that someone could throw millions of dollars at me and say, yep, let's keep this going. But unless it was, you know, tens of millions, because that's literally the time that we would need to get the healthcare system over the line.
To get a clear run at it.
It's
that makes
unless
sense.
it becomes accessible for the wider population, it's a really difficult thing to have turn, you know. And I think, honestly, my belief was that we were going to be able to do that within the first few years. But, there's not even a crack of the door opening to get in there. But the outpouring of support has been amazing. So, you know, I don't know what the future holds for Homb at this point. We're just really going through the motions at the moment. Obviously, you know, a lot of our staff are devastated. And you know, we've got some beautiful mums in there at the moment that we're caring for and looking after. And, you know, it makes it hard because, you know,
it's quite bittersweet.
Yeah, it is. But look, we'll see what will evolve over the next, you know, sort of 5 to 6 weeks.
Are you using your social media platform, the website? You've got the Homb podcast. Will you continue your online presence?
Look, we're not sure. We have absolutely wanted to use this, you know, 8 weeks since the announcement to advocate and promote other businesses within the space so that, you know, there's more awareness and advocacy for services in postpartum. So we're definitely using the platform for that. We'll continue to use it, you know, over the next few months as, you know, spitting out facts and figures and statistics and still advocating. But beyond that, I'm still not quite sure of, you know, what's going to be the best use of Homb's voice. And you know, that may come or it may not.
Evolve,
it may evolve. I'm not quite sure at this point, but you know, I'm so grateful that I was in a position that I could plant the seed. And, you know, if society's not ready for it and healthcare system isn't ready for it, then, you know, it's just not the right time. I do believe that it will come, but unfortunately, we were ahead of our time. We innovated.
Early starter. And that, you know, that comes with being an innovator and a disruptor, that sometimes the market isn't ready for it, but you've put it out there now.
Absolutely.
And I think it's so great that you are using the platform in the next several weeks to amplify other providers in the postpartum healthcare space, because something like this needs that advocacy, the education and the awareness, so that the next time there's a Homb, it's got a better chance. So I think it's fantastic that you are continuing that voice and that advocacy.
Yeah, look, and you know, I've had a couple of people already reach out and say, look, we're not doing a similar thing, but, you know, we'd love you to consult and, you know, do things like that. I've had a couple of people reach out for me to, you know, do a couple of talks and speaking things. So, you know, I think there'll always be an element of advocacy within my capacity as an individual. But whether Homb is a part of that alongside me, I'm just not quite sure at the moment.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, thank you so much for starting the conversation on bringing postpartum health into the mainstream. Like I said before, I absolutely commend you on what you've done, and I'm so grateful, as I'm sure the listener is, that you did bring Homb into the world, because it is much needed and you have started that movement. So Thank you again, Larissa, and I look forward to seeing what's part of your next chapter.
Thank you so much, Marianne. Thank you.
If you loved what you heard, make sure you follow the podcast so you never miss an episode. Or even better, leave us a review. And if you have a bold idea of your own, I'd love to hear from you. Check out the show notes to get in touch.